Hi everybody, welcome back to my channel. Today we are just sort of winging this video. We're gonna see what happens. I have zero expectations, so I'm happy you are here. If you want to be along for the ride, if this works out, if it doesn't work out, you will see my process of how I create my spirit animals. I'm going to be working on an elephant today, and I'm going to be using the stamp that you all keep asking me about, this little thing right here, which is apparently very difficult to find right now. I am going to flip over here to my video on my YouTube channel that tells a little bit more about it. For those of you who have inquired about this and cannot find this stamp, it is called a Craft Smart Premium Texture Sheet. It's not really a stamp, I guess. I mean, it is, but it isn't. It's not to stamp directly onto paper, which is what I use it for. It is for clay, apparently, which I did not know that. So I think that's why a lot of you are having trouble finding it, because you're looking in the wrong area. So they have been found in sets of 3 at Michael's in the clay area, like where the polymer clay is. I use it for texture for my elephants. And as you can see, I don't clean them very well. So that is on me, but it still works, even though I hardly ever clean it. So we're going to be working on a baby elephant today. And I am going to pick up my phone and I am going to show you what we are going to be working on. Okay, so we're going to do this real quick. I am on wildlifereferencephotos.com and I purchased this photo actually. You have to purchase these photos. They're, I think, $5 a piece, or you can purchase a set and you can get 5 photos for $10 if you download 5 photos within 30 days. I love this site because they have amazing photos of wildlife. It allows you to really zoom in. You get to see what it is that you are getting before you purchase it, and they're high quality images. So I have already purchased this photo, and this is going to be my reference. So if you want to work from the same photo, I suggest you go over there to their website and download this photo. Okay, so let me put this back up here. I have my image already drawn out onto my Yupo paper. I have an 11 by 14 sheet. I work on a very thin tracing paper so that I can see what I'm doing underneath. So I have this sketched out already. I sketch out my image, and then once I have it sketched out, all I do, some people, they use pencil on the back. I don't do that. I just lay my image down where I want it, hold with my left hand, and with my right hand I go underneath, and I just do a very light, and I mean a light hand trace all the way around. The reason why I don't do pencil underneath, some people scribble pencil and then they trace over top so they can get an outline. I don't do that because I risk getting smudge marks on the Yupo paper that way with all of the graphite that's on the bottom, and then you have to worry about using an eraser and you have to erase it, and my inks do not like to adhere to any of that. So I try to keep the paper as spotless as possible. So the only way for me to successfully do that is by using this technique. So once I have my image drawn, I start out by stamping. I use this right here. This is what I use. And the reason why I use this, you can probably get by using any kind of stamp pad, but I like this because it's semi-transparent. It shows up fairly light, especially the silver here shows up really light on the paper. I don't really want to see the stamp. I want the effect that comes from the stamp. So what I do is, so I have a couple of pieces of paper here. I'm just going to start tearing these, and I do not spend a whole lot of time doing this, but I'm laying the pieces of paper. I know you can't hardly see this outline, but I'm laying the pieces of paper just to the right of my pencil line because I don't want my stamp to go anywhere other than on my elephant. So, I mean, it doesn't matter to me if it goes off a little bit because I think that just adds to the character of it. But, sorry if you're hearing that ripping sound in your ear. So I'm just putting it around my elephant because I only want that stamp right where my elephant is. And I tend to work pretty loosely when I do things like this because, I mean, my paintings are semi-abstract anyway. So it doesn't really matter to me if it is a little bit off. I just want it to be mostly contained to where I want it. So once I have that done, then I just start by adding this texture stamp sort of all over. And then I just kind of go to town on it, frankly. I think we're going to start up here. I'm going to work in sections, actually. Just lay it down and press it on. I don't know if you can see that very well or not. It doesn't really matter at this point because when I add the ink, you'll really be able to see it. So just lay it down. I try not to overlap too much unless I want a lot of added texture in a certain area. Then I will overlap. So I'm just going to lay these down. Kind of want to make sure that I get in most of the places. And as you can see, this isn't rocket science. It's just a matter of placement, I guess, is what it is. So let's see. Trying to figure out how to do this. I mean, I press pretty hard. Obviously, the harder you press, and some areas that have a little bit more of that stamp pad is going to show up a lot more than others. But again, this is okay. I mean, I don't stay in any particular line. You can kind of move this around depending on how you want it. Like I'm going to go this way a little bit because there's an ear there. And then I'm going to go this way because there's another ear. Oh, that showed up nicely there. I think I might follow that down. Okay. I don't know how this is going to work, but we're going to see. I'm going to go a little bit lighter here on the face. Okay. And I am going to sort of make it so that the stamp effect is going, and so it's not going diagonal, so it's going straight across to sort of mimic this elephant's natural wrinkled look. I add a little bit more to it here. Now here I'm going very light because I have a very small space to work with, and I'd rather do it a little bit lighter and not get it right in this area. Again, I apologize if you can't really see these lines. Okay, and I did get in an area that I did not want to get. But I'm not stressing about it, because when it comes to working with inks, the one thing that I have learned all these years is that it all works out in the end. You just have to believe that it will. So this is a boring part, so I apologize for that. I promise it will get better once I start doing my ink work. Get in a little bit there if I can. A little bit. Okay. Let's call that good. I don't want to go overboard with it. Okay. So I pretty much have the stamps where I want. Now, you cannot start using your ink right away. If you start with your ink right now, you're going to smudge all of this. It's just going to disappear. It's going to smudge. It's going to get nasty. So what I am going to do to help speed up the process along is I'm going to use a hairdryer. First, I'm going to go wash my hands. Then I'm going to go use a hairdryer, and I'm going to make sure that this is perfectly dry. I will probably set the hairdryer on it about a foot away on low, and I'm going to give it about 5 minutes. I want to make sure this is completely dry. If you want to walk away, and if you don't have a hairdryer handy, wait at least a half hour. I mean, to give yourself plenty of time, because these spaces that have a lot of this stamp pad on it is going to takes a lot longer to dry than you think it does. So leave it sit, be patient, and I am going to be back when this is completely dry, and we will keep going. So I'll see you shortly. Okay, we are back, and everything is dry to the touch. I usually tap it with my finger. If none lifts off on my hand, then I know it is ready to go. So I usually layer when I work on my elephants, because I want a lot of different colors added, and I work from light to dark. And the first color that I'm going to be using, this kind of exploded a couple of months ago. I'm trying to figure out, I don't even know what color this is. Flesh, I think. This is Daler and Rowney's FW Acrylic Artist's Ink, my favorite inks in the world to use. And I love this color because it has this very gentle, sort of muted blush tone to it. And I normally use a very small brush, but for this purpose, I am going to be using a large brush. This is a number 10 round, and I'm just going to get it wet with water, and I'm going to show you what we do here. So I don't pour my inks into wells or anything like that. I just shake it, I lift up the dropper, and then I just usually run my brush along the outside of it, just enough to get it wet, because I end up using quite a bit of water. So what I'm going to do is I am just going to start outlining my elephant. Now I don't dip back in and get more ink. I grab water. I just pull my water right out of the water container, and I just keep pulling this color downward. And as you can see, already that stamp is acting as a resist. You can see that pattern coming through underneath. And when I've pulled enough of this down where it's starting to become more transparent, then I grab more ink. Okay, and we're just going to continue to follow the outline of the elephant. bit more here. When it gets really opaque, I don't like that because it will dry that way and I might not be able to see a lot of that texture underneath. So I will pull that color back out and then just transfer it somewhere else. So I'll bring it over here, pull it out of here, move it over here. And we're just going to keep doing that. I don't want to get it real close to the eye just because I need to be able to see my lines underneath. Now, a lot of you have said, okay, well, why do you do such a light hand with your pencil? Well, I don't want to see the pencil marks when I'm all done. I don't like to see the pencil marks of my paintings. So I keep a very light hand. I don't want people to be distracted by pencil marks. I want them to see the color. That's what I want people to see. The color, the image, and not the pencil lines. All right. Now there are some areas that you can see that I didn't get the stamp effect. So obviously there's not going to be a resist there, but that's okay. That is okay. You could go in again and stamp. I've not attempted to do that before. I just, you know, when I work with inks, I let things happen as they're naturally going to happen. But if you want more control and you want to do that, you're welcome to try it. I don't know how well it will work once you have ink on your paper, but you're welcome to try it. Okay, make sure that I have everything. Okay, my elephant is covered, and I apologize for this area right here. This is my light that's shining. Once it dries, that will go away. But this is where we are for our first layer. So I'm going to pause this video once again. I'm going to grab my hair dryer and I'm going to dry this ink so that we can add our next layer. So I'll see you in a few seconds. Okay, don't you just love the power of video? That took about, I don't know, 5 or 6 minutes for all of this to dry, but look at the beauty. You guys, look at the beauty of this. I am going to bring the camera down so you can see. You see where that ink settled, and you can see the texture of that stamp underneath. Look how pretty that is. It's just, and look, especially up there where the back is, it just is beautiful. So, and that's only my first layer. I mean, you could stop right there and start working in with colored pencil. You could watercolor over top of this. You could, you could collage over top of this. There's so many options for this. It's just, you know, that's what I love about Yupo paper. That's what I love about these inks. I am just always over the moon, and you never know what you're going to get. It's different every time. So, okay, from here, I am going to use, what am I going to use? I think I'm going to use Payne's Gray. Again, this is by Daler and Rowney. It's Payne's Gray, as I just stated. This is sort of like a blue-gray, like a smoky, bluish gray color. I really, really like it. And it complements this color, this flesh tone, really, really well. So if you don't want a really dark hue, add water. If you want a dark hue, add less water. It's pretty straightforward. So I'm going to use my same brush that I used before, and use my little same technique here and just grab some of this ink. My brush is loaded with water, by the way. I did not dab it dry. It's wet, it is loaded with water, and now it's got ink on the tip. And I am just going to go through the same process again. Okay, I'm going to just put ink on. And now, well, now you're really going to see this texture come through here. Now I want it light because I want to be able to add more color on top of this. So I'm going to add a lot of water to this. I want it very transparent. So I'm going to go through and just add more water. Pull this down and add more water. Okay. And for those of you wondering about this particular piece, every year I host an auction on Facebook, and I auction off an elephant painting, and it is in August because that is also the month that we celebrate World Elephant Day, and that always falls on, I believe it always falls on August 12th. And this year, this video I'm taping on the 8th of August. I have been working on doing paintings for this event because part of the proceeds from the sale of my work benefits the David Sheldrick Wildlife Trust, which is an organization that is very near and dear to my heart. This will be my 5th year doing this, and I receive so much support from the community over these paintings, and am always just amazed by how generous people are with their bids, and so that we can raise money for this very worthy cause. So this painting that I'm working on here is the second elephant that I've done already for this auction. Well, that I'm working on. This will also be for the auction when I'm finished with it, if he turns out, which I think he's going to turn out beautifully. You know how some paintings go through an awkward stage and you think, oh my gosh, is it gonna get any better, or is this as good as it gets, you know? But I just always have faith that if they're determined, that if they're gonna work out, they're gonna work out. You cannot be afraid of these inks. You can't be afraid of the fact that these inks are the boss, because they are. Once I let go of the idea that I had to control, I mean, you can control them, but what fun is that? You know, I like the element of surprise. I am a recovering control freak, and so this is where I really enjoy playing and just letting go and waiting to see what happens. As you see, I am still using a very light hand, a lot of water. See how transparent this is. I don't know if you can hear or not. I'm using my mic, but there is a storm raging outside, so hopefully that's not too distracting. Hopefully you can't hear that as well as I can right now. Okay. Again, avoiding that eye area. And now we are about done with our second layer. If I wanted to go in darker, which I believe I'm going to do in the shadow areas, so I'm just going to grab a smaller brush here. I am using a number 4 round. I'm going to wet it, and since this is the underside of the elephant, I'm going to go a little bit darker here. But you'll notice that even though I'm going darker, you still see that resist. And don't worry that it's not dark enough, that there's too much resist going on, because oh my gosh, the stamp, there's too much of that stamp pad ink on there, and there's too much of a resist, and don't worry about that. It'll all work out. Okay, so you can see it's a little bit darker there. Not much, but a little bit. I'm trying to sort of map out where the dark areas are, because as you can see, I have completely lost sight of all of my lines. But that's okay. I know what you're thinking. You're like, how am I going to know where the leg starts? How am I going to know where things are? Well, I will show you that in just a moment. I think that might be where it's at. I'm sort of referring back to my photo. Always refer back to your photo. I know that's not completely accurate there. I think I'm way off. I think that's supposed to go way up there, actually. But I don't want to get too crazy with this not knowing where things are. So I'm going to stop here. I am going to get my trusty hair dryer out once again. We're going to dry this, and then I'm going to come back and show you how to find your lines. So be right back. All right, everything is dry, and look how great that looks. I mean, it's just looking better and better and better. So what do you do when you've lost sight of all your lines? Well, that's where your trusty sheet comes in handy. So once everything is dry, I just place my tracing paper here over top, line it up, and then I come back in on the areas that I need to with my pencil. Now you kind of see where how I outline to begin with. And now you can see, I don't know, well, you probably can't see, but I can. I can see where this line is here. So I can go back through and I work those lines back in where I need to. Okay. And I just do the important ones so that I can see, you know, I am a firm believer in letting the inks do their thing, but you have to have some guidelines, because if you don't, unless you want your animals or whatever it is you're working on to look abstract, you kind of have to have a sense of where things start and stop so that everything is in proportion with one another. So I just sort of take a peek, make sure that I'm seeing everything as it needs to be. Okay, just do this. And yeah, I was way off. Wow. I was way off with that line. Okay, right here where this trunk is, I need to follow that line back up because I lost that as well. Okay, so I can see these lines perfectly again. And now I can go back in and fix my little area there that I assumed was where it should be, but actually I needed to come way up here. The belly was way up here. So I was way off. Okay. So this would be a good time for you to go in with this color if you want to. Refer back to your photo and look and see where the shadows are, and then just place the shadows with the ink. You're just using the ink to shadow those areas, and it will start really coming together. So I'm referring back to my photo here, And since this leg is behind the trunk, this leg is going to be dark. So I'm going to bring that Payne's gray in here. Darken that up. And if it's too dark, you can always, another beautiful thing about Yupo paper, if you have enough water that you have added, it'll take a little bit for this to dry. So if it's too dark, like let's say I want to apply even more color over top of this, if it's too dark, I just take a paper towel and I just dab on it and it will pull that color right off. So you really can't make a mistake. You just can't. Now if you add ink straight on, like I did up here, I added more ink than water. If I tried to wipe that off, it wouldn't, because it's already dry. So keep that in mind. The more water you add with your ink, the more forgiving it is. If you put ink on heavy without there being a lot of water on your brush, then it's going to dry very quickly and it's going to be a lot more difficult to get off. Now you could use alcohol. I have this 91% isopropyl alcohol that I use, which will assist in lifting it, but it's not going to lift it back up to pure white paper. Okay, so just keep that in mind also. All right, so rather than shutting off, well, I suppose I should shut off the camera again because this hairdryer is obnoxiously loud. So I'm going to turn it off again and I'm going to dry this little bit here and then we're going to add our next color. So see you in a second. Alrighty, here we are. Everything is dry and I'm going to add my third color. Now I have no idea how many colors I'm going to add. I usually never know what color I'm going to do with my animals. They just sort of come to me as I paint. So, but I am going to warm things up now a little bit. So I started with a warm color, I went to a cool color, now I'm going to go back to a warm color. And I am going to use Red Earth by Daler and Rowney. I have no idea how this is going to turn out, but now I am referring back to my photograph. And if you have the same photograph that I do, by now you will notice that on the head of this little elephant, it is a little bit more brown. So I'm going to sort of follow that guideline. And now I'm going to start doing a bit of detail work. So I'm referring back to my photo and I'm going to start adding in this warm color just to start defining things a bit more, because now we want to start adding shadows, highlights, mixing colors even more so that you can really see the detail of this sweet little one here. And oh my gosh, he's just so precious to work with. I love painting elephants. They just make me so happy. And if I'm raising money, especially, I mean, just can't get any better than that. Okay, so I'm referring back to my painting. Not completely. A lot of it, I've been doing this for many, many years now, so a lot of this is just, well, where do I want this color to be? And it is going to be instinctual in a lot of ways. You're just going to get a feel for it, of where you want this color to go. Now, in between, I'm running my brush in my water and I'm reloading it with water before I add the ink to it, because I want a lot of water here. I don't want opaque ink. I want it very transparent, because you want to see what's underneath. That's the whole beauty of this. That is how you get all of these beautiful, rich colors, is by keeping the ink transparent and that way all the colors that came before it remain and they just complement one another. So you can see already that this little guy is starting to take shape here. And let's see, we're going to add here. I'm following a lot of my guidelines here from my pencil. And as you can see, no matter how, I mean, this is my third layer already, and you can still see that texture coming through just fine. And I stumbled upon that stamp. I think I got it on clearance. I know they come, someone said, a follower of mine said that she found it in sets of 3. Christine, thank you for following up with that and letting me know where you found it. Because after I bought it, I mean, I didn't think any more about it. And then when I figured out that I could use it for this purpose, I was like, oh my gosh, this is extraordinary. What a handy tool this is. But then I couldn't remember anything else about it. So Christine was able to find it, and she was kind enough to give me all the information about it. So it comes in sets of 3 now. I don't believe you can get them in singles. At least I've not seen them actually since I bought this one. But it has definitely been a favorite tool to use for me. Okay, we are coming around here to the back leg, and again I am referring back to my photo, and I'm treating this color as a highlight, or I would say not really a highlight, but mid-tones. Let's put it that way. We're using this for mid-tones. So not where the sun hits directly on the elephant, but sort of halfway in between, if that makes sense. And we're just applying this color to those areas. Okay, my ink is starting to get really dry down here because I can see streaks from the brush. I don't want that, so I come back in with water. And as soon as you tap that water to that ink, then it just disappears. I don't know why I don't like brush strokes in my paintings. I find them distracting. I recommend that you play. Try and create your own style with this, because there's so much that you can do. I have barely tapped into all of the wonderful things that can be done with this paper. So I recommend that you just play with it and see what you can create. I would love to see your creations, by the way. If you come up with a technique that you have not seen me do, I would love for you to share it with me, because you know, this paper is still, I'm amazed by how many people don't know about this paper yet. Whenever I attend an art fair and people ask me what type of watercolor I'm using, I tell them I'm not using watercolor. I'm using ink on Yupo paper, and every person has always said, what is that? I've never heard of that before. So it's still really new, even though I've been working with it and it's been on the market for some time. So this is uncharted territory still for a lot of us. And I just happen to stick with my small arsenal of techniques here because, you know, it's working for me, it serves a purpose, and I don't have as much time to play anymore now that I'm doing this full time. I have a lot of things that I am trying to get done, and that's one of the things about being a full-time artist. I love being a full-time artist, but getting out of the mindset that everything you create has to be something that you can sell, because I mean, obviously if you don't sell, you don't pay your bills. So it doesn't leave a whole lot of time for playing, and that's one thing that I really miss. So I encourage you to play. Okay, I am pretty happy with the way this is going here. I'm just looking at my photo, make sure that I've hit all of the places that I want to hit. Wow, it is really raining outside, you guys. I mean, it is pouring. Okay, maybe over here, just a little bit on this eye. Okay, that is going to be it for that color for now, but I'm going to bring this up close to the camera. It's a lot easier than me bringing the camera down to it, isn't it? Right here, I'm not digging this too much here. And this is just the way the ink is drying. There's nothing wrong here, but it's drying kind of odd here. It's probably because I don't have a lot of stamp on here, so it's not picking up any texture. So no worries, it will be fixed. That's the way I look at it. It'll be fine. It'll turn out just fine. I don't know, I like it. It gives it an interesting texture that one would not expect. So, all right, I'm going to stop there. I'm probably going to do a time lapse from here on out so that you can see the rest of this elephant come to life, because from here it's going to be about fine-tuning and a lot of detail work. And recording all of that in real time is going to be very lengthy, very boring. So I'm not going to tape that in real time. Plus it would take forever to upload on YouTube. So I'm going to do a time lapse, and then I will come back at the end. And if there's any added information, any surprises that I happen to stumble upon along the way that I wanted to share with you that I think you should know about, I will let you know. So I hope you enjoy this time lapse, and I will see you when this painting is finished. So see you soon. Okay, my little elephant is done, and I am so happy with the way that he turned out. I think that he looks lovely, and I did run into a few problems that I wanted to share with you. I normally only work in maybe 3 layers, and by layers I mean colors one on top of the other. Like I demonstrated earlier in this video. I normally only work in 3, but for some reason this guy just called out for a lot more color. So I just kept reaching for color and putting color in. I added Bombay India ink in Tangerine. If I can't find the ink I'm looking for, the color, in the Daler and Rowney, I always turn to Bombay India inks. They have a beautiful effect also, and it's very difficult to tell the two apart, really, in a lot of cases. I'm sorry, I'm losing my voice for some reason. So I used this here. Then I started pulling in colors that I normally wouldn't have used. I used some Process Magenta. That's an odd name for a color. Process Magenta. Anyway, I used this. This is Daler and Rowney. I also used Grass Green, Bombay India ink in this area here and here, and this beautiful orange terracotta color here. I combined Burnt Umber with the FW inks and the Tangerine. So I started using, I think I even used a little bit of purple in here as well. I did, as a matter of fact, right there, and I don't know what I did that. I probably walked off somewhere with it and then left it in the kitchen when I was getting tea, probably. But anyway, I used a purple, and then I noticed that after about the 4th color, and I did let it dry in between. I felt that I gave it an adequate amount of time to dry, but the resist started to come off about after the 4th color that I added. So it does really, really well when you add 3 layers. I don't have any problem with 3 different colors to create all of these different shaded areas, light areas, all these areas of interest. 3 colors, I have no problem with. I think that you could probably layer indefinitely on top of it if you allowed it to really, really dry. I'm finding that it looks dry, but it really isn't, I guess. Maybe it just needs time to set. So I bet if I had walked away after the 4th color and came back the next day, I think that I probably would not have had an issue. But regardless, I'm going to show you the area that I'm talking about here especially. So you see all of this texture here from the stamp. This area right here is where it really started to come off. I mean, it's no big deal. I think that it still looks perfectly fine. But it did start coming off. So I wanted to show you the close-up anyway, just to let you see just how beautiful this stamp works and how much interest it gives this baby elephant. It just really is beautiful. So what I did was, and I always experiment, and I experiment on my paper. I don't ever experiment like on a separate sheet of paper. I don't know if I go on autopilot or what happens, but I'm like, oh, let's give this a try. Let's see if this works. So I reached for my alcohol inks, and I started using alcohol inks a little bit on some of these areas. This is the color Slate by Tim Holtz Adirondack inks. And oddly enough, it did not bother the texture. It did not bother the stamp effect. So, you know, go figure. I don't know why that is, because it has alcohol in it. I would think that it would have wiped it away. But I did use a very, very light hand. I used a small brush and I kind of dabbed it on, and it worked fine. So I highly recommend that you experiment with these inks. I hope that this video gives you some courage to try working with this paper, using these inks. you know, and really it's limited to your imagination. This paper is so versatile. It is so amazing. You can do so much with this paper. I can't recommend it enough. So I hope this video was helpful. And for those of you who are watching this before August 12th, 2018, this painting will be up for bid on Facebook in an artist auction group called The Creative Kind. It is a group of ladies and amazing artists that I have joined forces with, and together we create art for a monthly auction, and we donate part of the proceeds from our sales to a different charity each month. This month it is my charity, which is the David Sheldrick Wildlife Trust. So every piece that is sold, 20% of the proceeds will go to that charity, and that of course is why I'm creating elephants this month, among other things. So if you're on Facebook, go to The Creative Kind and ask to join that group, and you will be allowed in, where you can bid and win some art and help charities that need money in the process. So I hope that you found this helpful, and if there's anything that I did not answer, questions that you have, leave a comment below, and I will get back to you as soon as I am able. And what else? Subscribe if you haven't already subscribed. Let me know if you want to see more tutorials like this, or if they're just too darned long, because this is probably going to be a long video for you to watch. So if you're with me now, congratulations for making it to the end. And I will look forward to seeing you all next time. So have a good day. See you guys later. Bye.